Hello, a very warm welcome back to all of you. Today we will be looking at the subject of goals and how it relates to the subject of karma, destiny and choice. And to that end, I bid a warm welcome to our guest in the studio, Sister Denise.
Thank you.
So, meaningful goals, that is somewhat an interesting topic. When one thinks of goals in life, I must admit, in my own life, I have not always considered how the law of karma impacts on my goals. And I suspect that I'm not alone in this. What is your take?
Have you heard about triple bottom line?
No, no.
When they say bottom line, what they mean is money. A lot of people's goals are to do with money, fame, success, prestige, all of this. And that's the bottom line. Triple bottom line is something that the environmental movement had been talking about, sustainable development and so on. So triple bottom line means, okay, money is an important thing to take into consideration. A second area is relationships. Because sometimes if money is your goal, you may go for money at the expense of your relationships, in which case you're taking away a substantial part of your happiness, because happiness is very much connected with good relationships. Third bottom line is the environment. So the impact of your goals, you want to make money, but it may be also at the expense of the environment's ability to reconstitute itself and continue to be bountiful. So if you think about your goals in terms of triple bottom line, you're definitely taking into consideration karma, the philosophy of karma, the laws of karma, the consequences of your action. So we need to bear in mind that if our goal is to be happy, it means that, yes, wealth is part of it, relationships are part of it, and health is part of it. So your relationship with the environment is also including your relationship with your body. So your health is part of that. If you have money but you're sick, that's no use. If you have money but everybody hates you, that's no use. You're not happy. So you need to have meaningful goals where you're taking into consideration that your karma with yourself, your environment, the people, everything is nicely balanced, so that you have a long-term kind of happiness. Part of the purpose of your life is to improve. You want to improve your talents, your intellect, your character, the influence you have in this world has to be something really very good and beneficial. I think it's like an investment. If you're investing in yourself, your people, your world, the development of the world, everything should be progressing and moving forward, then you want to be contributing. So if you have a goal to contribute, you're going to get much more out of it than just a goal to take. Because the goal to take means, okay, you have credit, you can take. But if your credit runs out, then, whereas if you're contributing, you're taking from your credit, but you're also refurbishing it and reinvesting everything. And it's a good principle of business that you don't just take profit. You take the profit and you reinvest it in the business, and the business will grow and prosper and it will sustain you.
As you speak, the question that popped into my mind is, why is it so difficult to see?
Maybe people are short-sighted. You see the immediate benefit that you can look for. So a part of spiritual practice is to develop long sight, to be able to see, okay, after 10 years, after 20 years, after 50 years, after 100 years. Sometimes people, they give as an inheritance a newly planted area with trees. And those trees will mature after 30 years or whatever. And then that child will get a forest or an orchard of trees which will continue and continue to bear fruit. The value is increasing all the time. So you have to think about increasing the value, increasing your value, meaningfulness, you know, for your life to be meaningful. It has to have this element of not just what you are getting out of it, but what you're putting into it and what the larger world is getting out of it.
In terms of the law of karma, how does ambition come into the picture? Because making of goals requires a certain amount of ambition. Does the law of karma say be ambitious or not be ambitious? Because ambition sits deep with a lot of people.
Yeah, ambition is very important. And sometimes people say, oh, this person is ambitious, meaning this person just wants to get ahead of everybody else and make themselves good and so on and so forth. So there's this mentality in the world which is very competitive. And you will use this expression to get people to be less competitive, to undermine their thrust of what they're doing for themselves. So I think it's very important to recognize that you have a right to be ambitious. And the difference is, if you're ambitious, what exactly is it that you want? So I very often ask people this question, okay, what do you really, really want? It's a difficult question to answer. But if you do sit with that, even sit with a big piece of paper and really write down, what do you want? What are your real deep, deep desire? And some desires are just you consuming something. You want sense gratification. Those are very small desires. You have a desire that you want to achieve something that will persist after your death, that you want to make something which is having a big impact on many people. You want to bring something to people's attention that is going to help people for generations. These are very, very good ambitions. There are other ambitions, is you want to take for yourself and you don't care who gets trampled in the way. That would be a negative ambition. So ambition itself is a neutral word, but I think it's very good to put your energy and your drive behind something that's really worthwhile and that will have huge consequences, not only for yourself, but for many generations and for many people. This has to do with greatness, you know. You have a right to be great. Not everybody will do something like that, which has this huge impact, but if you can, do it.
The law of karma and goal setting requires one to see the bigger picture. Again, we're reluctant to see the bigger picture. We keep our world this small. How does one expand one's purview?
Well, partly inspiration. You know, what was common when I was a student in university, it was very common that after you finish school and before you go to university, you take a year to travel the world. You really expand your horizon with that. You understand different countries, different cultures, different ways of being. You see some of the different great artifacts that have been created and left as legacies for the civilization and culture. So you're seeing yourself in a much wider context, and then this means that your sense of yourself is different than this little narrow context. And I think people who just get born in the village, grow up in the village, get married in the village and die in the village, their horizon is little. And they will just see only that. Nowadays, because we have internet, it's possible for us to really develop ourselves, educate ourselves in many ways beyond what was possible earlier. and we can do courses online and so many things that were maybe prohibitive in previous times. It's really a matter of taking advantage, taking a risk, going out past your limits and boundaries and seeing what's out there. In that way you do make yourself larger and broader and gain more experience, and it's very good because that comes back to you and I think changes your relationship with the world.
You know, I think it's actually difficult for people to see that their goals have karmic consequences, because the consequences and their actions have a time lapse between them. What you're saying is that you need to conduct yourself in such a way that you're ensuring a good outcome, even though you can't see it within the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. How does one have faith in the knowing, even though you can't see what it is that you know?
It's very important to study, because when you study something, you understand how the laws connected with it work. If you know only on the basis of sense perception, you don't know much. If you know on the basis of study, you know a lot more. And so this is why education really is very important.
And you're talking about spiritual education.
Any education, but spiritual education is very important because, I mean, normal education doesn't talk about the laws of karma or the consequences or anything, which you really need to know. You know, I was talking earlier about the need for a convergence of the spiritual and the psychological. I think also in education, there has to be a convergence of spiritual wisdom with worldly wisdom. Because if you know, say, technology, and you don't know anything about karma, then how you use that technology can be quite negative. You may make a lot of money, but you may also go in a lot of karmic debt. And if you don't know, then you will make decisions based on ignorance rather than good decisions based on a larger body of understanding. So I think the spiritual component gives a context that is sorely lacking in the education system today.
You know, in the law, the country in which I practice it, there's an expression, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Does the same apply to the law of karma?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a very good expression that people need to know about. The thing is that conventionally in most democracies, they want religious matters and state matters to be kept completely separate, which means in education they keep this information segregated from students, and that may be to their great cost. And so this principle of separating the material and the spiritual means that you don't see that they're interdependent and they're all the time working together. And if you say, why is it that people don't see? They've been trained not to see. It's part of the process of our civilization is to be blind, and maybe we don't want to carry on like that.
People do not connect the intense sorrow that's present in today's world with the fact that we brought it on ourselves?
No, they don't, because when you see intense sorrow in the world, you know, there's denial. I think in the environmental movement this is brought up quite a lot, that there is sorrow in this world because of the way the industries have exploited a certain part of the environment, and then people suffer, the environment suffers, there's cancer, there's all sorts of things. And the people responsible would just deny it and say there's no evidence. They don't want to look for any evidence because single bottom line, you know, triple bottom line, we don't need that. They do need that. but they choose to disregard something very important. But sooner or later comes, slap them in the face.
One cannot run, one cannot hide.
No, nowhere to go.
When one is in the process of making a decision about which way one's life should go, explain to us how one enlists the help of the divine in goal setting and revisiting your goals to see whether it works for you spiritually.
I think in terms of the divine, one thing to know is that the Supreme Being is the ocean of wisdom, the ocean of information about all this working together of the material and the spiritual. So when you're looking to the influence of the divine in terms of goal setting, you're looking at your life. You're a spiritual being in a physical body, and you're operating this symbiosis of matter and spirit, but you're denying that it's like that. Once you bear it in mind that there's all the time matter and spirit working together, you keep bringing God into everything, what God stands for. And you bring in the philosophy of karma, which stands for balance. When everything is balanced, it goes forward very well. There is a word from the Hopi nation in North America, Kayaniskatski.
Okay, explain.
It means turmoil as a result of imbalance. And this is what we're experiencing in the world today. There is turmoil, there's war, there's a lot of the infrastructures breaking down, the healthcare system, the education system. So many things are breaking down. The financial system is breaking down. Why? Because everything is out of balance. And the more out of balance it goes, the more turbulent it is. And eventually it's a recipe for collapse sooner or later. So when you pay attention on the wisdom of the Supreme Being, which is all about re-establishing balance, then you can do what is necessary to go from turbulence to balance. If you're on an airplane and there's turbulence, everybody's like, ooh, it's going up and down. People feel very insecure. As long as that plane is going straight and easy, you don't even think about it. So balance is key.
I liked the expression that you used in your earlier answer. You said spirit and matter work together. That is not what the world has become. In many instances, spirit works antagonistic to matter. That causes problems. Tell us more about that.
Well, when I say spirit and matter work together, when there's balance, it's very harmonious. And when there's imbalance, then you see disharmony. So it's not antagonistic per se, but when people disregard this symbiosis, then they create trouble for themselves. And I think nowadays so much about this is becoming known that the problem is not really ignorance, but it's much more denial.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you deny something, you know very well, but you choose to ignore it. And that's a greater sin than being ignorant.
And what causes denial?
Well, you'll deny something if it's inconvenient for you to take it into consideration. Maybe on the short term it's convenient, but on the long term it's very inconvenient. So you need to broaden your timeline a little bit. But people see what's immediately in front of them. Live now, pay later, or pay not at all. You can't, because you are an eternal soul. You deny that. You will have to pay for your karmic debts. You deny that. You are responsible. You will be held accountable. You think you can avoid it? No. And this time that we're passing through at the moment, this historical period, It's definitely a time when everything is coming up for accountability. If you're right with yourself, if you're right with the laws of karma, you're fine. But when you go against your conscience, when you go against balance, when you go against God, when you go against humanity, you will pay, and you will pay heavy.
We spoke of individuals and their future goals and ambitions. What words do you have for somebody who had a goal and ambition in the past and then finds out right now, having acquired some wisdom, having listened to you and the series, realize that, oh my God, I have committed a crime against humanity, not necessarily the law of the country that I'm living in, but a crime in terms of the law of karma. What then?
When people do that, do crimes against humanity, they're doing it because they're selfish. And if they are brought face to face with their selfishness, it's going to collapse their ego. So the ego is going to do everything possible to protect itself against such a thing. This is why the denial is so strongly pronounced. But circumstances sometimes just tear it down, and then that person is going to experience a great deal of regret, pain, embarrassment, losing face, all of this, and you can say that's the suffering of karma. We're trying to add our bit to the overall amount of knowledge available in the world so that people cannot say, oh, we didn't know. Why you didn't know? It's out there.
There are many who've realized that as a result of goals and ambitions they had in the past, that they've now created this karmic debt. And punishment hasn't come yet, but it's on its way. And they would like to do something about it. What can they do about it? Can you put a bad situation right? Can you intervene in your own karmic return?
Definitely you can. But in my experience, people don't get the message early. They get it a little bit late, you know. Something happens to wake them up. They get a wake-up call. And it's not totally too late, but it's a bit late. And many people in that situation, you hear of their stories and so on. And many people, they really do turn their life around, turn their business around. And sometimes they're very caught up in schemes and situations and ways of doing things. And they have to really kind of come down from their high horse or their position and say, okay, now I've realized. A few people will do that, but a lot of people, they have too much ego and they're too much invested, and they won't until they have to. So there's great merit in changing things around before you have to. So if you see it coming, you say, okay, oh my God, it's coming. Let me do something right now. That applies in business, in relationships, in health, and so many things. If you can pick the signs up early, then you can probably turn it around. But you sometimes go past the point of no return, and it doesn't matter what you do, it's too late.
Goals and the law of karma, they're both directly connected. So your message is, think carefully before making a decision. Very deep message. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So there you have it. Goals and the law of karma. What you decide is important, how you decide is important. And also, I really enjoyed what Sister Denise shared today. Ignorance is no excuse, but also denial is worse than ignorance. And one pays a very heavy price for both if one's ignoring the law of karma. So there you go. Understand the law of karma and apply it in every single aspect of your life. Thank you for what you shared today, and thank you for joining us. Take care and goodbye.